Okay, here we are for our monthly Cosmobiology Institute research meeting. It's on the fourth Thursday of each month. Today is the fourth Thursday in May 2025, May 27. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Professor Christopher Benton, to help, and we all help each other. So everyone's welcome to participate. Why are we here? We are here to help each other conduct research in astrology. The founders and board members of Cosmobiology Institute, and in our mission statement, it states clearly that our goal is to figure out if we can measure something in astrology. This is actually quite controversial. Are there measurable effects? Does astrology work in some kind of measurable way that can be replicated by other people, not just your personal experience, but could it be demonstrated through some kind of observations where you can tell somebody else, do this, 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 and this, and you will see this going on in the sky for these people or these situations? Can it be done? Some people say it has already been done. It's very controversial. A lot of astrologers don't think it's possible, either because of the way astrology works or limitations in modern scientific methods. We want to find out, and we want the data to tell us. We're not here to defend some a priori position. We all have our intuition, we all have our experiences, we all have our beliefs. That's good. And we need to find out, which I think is one of the most exciting adventures you could be on in modern times, like to figure this out, not just for a personal, individual conviction, but could it be a shared knowledge? That it becomes clear to everyone. So that's what we're here for. We have, so any questions, any kinds of research you want to do, or any questions or topics or interests that you have in research, we're here to help you and to help each other move forward. And I am recording, right? Yes. Am I recording?
Yes.
Yes, I am. Okay, good. Um, all right. So, Greg is doing some research. You can put in the chat any thoughts or questions you have. I think I'll start off with Greg and see what he has plans for a research project. We've talked about it before. We met in person. He came here, visited me here in Cincinnati, visited me and Anna. We had a good discussion, and he's moving forward. So, Greg, I don't know if you can have something coherent at this point, but why don't we pick up? I don't really remember where we left off. You could explain where you're at and what questions or what thoughts you have about how you want to move forward with your research.
Okay, I'll have to do it verbally. For some reason, I can't get my camera to work, and I put together a PowerPoint presentation earlier, but I'm having trouble opening that while I'm on this chat. So
Hmm.
I'll just give a quick overview of
Okay.
things.
Sometimes
Um,
when that happens to me, I reboot the machine and the camera starts to work.
okay, can you give me a few minutes to try that?
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you try it? We'll talk about some other things while you're rebooting. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead and reboot. Give it a try. You'll be back in a few minutes. And yeah, that'll work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sure. Okay, so while Greg is restarting and seeing if he can share his PowerPoint, um, I could address some interesting questions that Ahmed and Starlene have about, or I answered them, but I could go over here and explain a little more detail on some things in financial research. Or does anybody have any questions or topics you want me to address, or um, Christopher or the group as a whole? Or should I go ahead and share some thoughts about Starlene and Ahmed's research on financial? We're good. Let me check the chat and see if you guys are typing in the chat. No, I'm not hearing anything. So let me share this situation that Starlene and Ahmed are involved in. It's a short thing, and we can do this before we start into Greg's stuff. Let me show you this file, and I've got a question for you. Here's what they sent me, and let me open this file. Let's see. I think I had it open recently. Yeah. Okay. This is a question for you. They're doing research on financial markets, and this is on Bitcoin. So the question is, can astrology predict a stock price or a commodity price like gold, silver, in this case, Bitcoin? So what we have here are two graphs. We have the actual Bitcoin prices from, looks like July 2011 to October 2011. So this is what, about 3 months of data. So they're zooming into these 3 months. And during these 3 months, you can see that the Bitcoin prices went down, right? It's the green line. They're going down, 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 down. They had a little bit of a jump here, but overall going down through these 3 months. Can we predict this? So Ahmed and Starlene have developed formulas, and they're trying to refine them. And this is in the Sirius software. There's probably other software that can do similar things. The red line is the prediction. It says here Bitcoin forecast that Starlene and Ahmed made up. And for these 3 months, the correlation value that's determined by this software is minus 0.10. Here it calls it 10%. Normally it would be expressed as a decimal, 0.10. If the correlation is 0, it means it's random, right? 0 would just mean like you just were half the time right and half the time wrong. If it's positive, it means the red line is matching the green line. The green line's the actual prices. If it's negative, it means you're doing worse than random. Like, you can have a monkey throw something at, throw darts at a wall and the monkey would do better, just like random results. And the closer you are to minus 100%, or usually it's expressed as a percentage, to minus 1, the worse it is. If the red line was sitting exactly on the green line perfectly, because that will never happen, but like if you made such a perfect prediction that every little tiny move, the red line was sitting right on the green line, that would be 1.0 or 100%. So it did worse than random. Now here's their question, Ahmed in particular, his question is, why is the correlation negative when the ups and downs look pretty good? Like here it went up, the green, the actual price, and he's got some bumps upwards. Here it goes down, the actual price goes down, and he predicted it went down. So he's showing this down arrow saying, hey, our formula worked. And here the price went up, the green, the actual price, and it predicted that it would go up. Well, it predicted would go up more than it did, but the direction is correct.
Santino?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yes.
It's possible. So you have to measure your performance with another statistics than correlation, because now with minus 10, it's negative, but it's not meaningful anyway. If you do the test, minus 10 won't be significant. So if you want to measure what you say, you can do it with, for instance, a binomial. For instance, you can measure on a certain increment of 1 day, 2 day. Does it go up or does it go down?
Exactly.
And you do a binomial. I've done it. It could work.
Exactly. So what Vincent is saying is we can measure this in a different way. We can determine whether the prices are going up or down. So what's happening let me just finish this. So here it goes up, was predicted up. He's got an up arrow. So it looks in terms of going up and down that it's correct. Why is this graph negative when so many of the directions are correct? It's because this correlation coefficient, it's called a Pearson product moment correlation coefficient. It's probably the most common correlation coefficient used. And we sometimes just call it R, or correlation. It's a correlation, but this correlation coefficient does not measure ups and downs.
It doesn't measure what you want. That's
It doesn't measure what he wants.
It's not a good tool for you.
Right. This is not measuring what he wants, because what the correlation does is it goes at each point and it says at the beginning of this graph, are the green values, those are the actual values, are they close to the predicted values? No, the green values are way up here. Let's see, which one is which? The predicted, the red is way down here. So if you look at the distance between the green values and the red values, that's what the correlation coefficient tells you. It does not tell you if the direction is in the right. It's not saying they went up together or they went down together.
Yeah.
It's saying, are they similar? Let me show you one more thing.
Okay, I've got another idea for you.
Okay, let me show this.
Better idea.
Even a better idea. Okay, great.
Yes.
But let me make sure everybody's caught up with us. Vincent's another mathematician, statistician, and researcher. So we have a lot of advanced people here. But let me show you one more thing to make sure everybody's with us. This was the graph that Ahmed and Starlene sent me. I put some more illustrations on it. I drew these black and green circles. And what the black circles are showing is times during this 3-month time period or whatever it is, when I have no doubt there was a negative correlation. Like the first time period with this big black circle, the prediction is awful. The prediction was nothing's happening, but the prices were actually high. You all following me?
Mm-hmm.
This is important for different kinds of research because it focuses on what is your question.
Exactly.
And a lot of times in research, there's something very fundamental that everybody's missing. It's like we're too smart. We're thinking about too many complicated things. And there's something very simple, is that this thing is telling us how close the lines are. So this first part is in a very negative correlation. Now here, the green lines and the red lines are close. It doesn't matter if they're going up and down together. That has nothing to do with this correlation value. Each statistic, each observation tells you something. And this is not telling Ahmed and Starlene what they want to know. They want to know if they predict going up, if it's correct. Now here I have a second black area where I think they're pretty far apart. The green is pretty high, the red is pretty low. Here they're pretty close. Here, even though they went up together, and Ahmed put this arrow saying, hey, I got it right, they went up together, but the difference is so vast that the red score is not even close to the green score. This is at a negative correlation, even though the direction is correct.
Santino.
Yeah.
Okay, your visual intuition appears good. So next step, you just calculate the derivatives of each curves, and you calculate the correlation between the derivatives. This is what you want to measure.
Right, a derivative.
Yeah, but you know it's not a formal derivative. But you don't have you don't have a formula, but you do the derivative like.
Right.
Numerical derivative.
Right. Yeah. The idea of a derivative is you're seeing.
Yeah. Maybe it's going to be good. And I would even go with the second derivative because, as we know in physics, you have the position. The derivative is the speed. The second derivative is acceleration. F equal ma. The force is proportional to acceleration and so maybe that the planets are the force. So if we want to model the market of anything, maybe we should work with the second derivative of the market trend, because we want to identify the force, which is proportional to acceleration, which is the second
Right.
derivative.
Now that makes
Maybe you could try that.
right. That makes
I never
100.
tried it. I never done it.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense to me. For those of you who understand calculus and second derivatives and so on. But let me also present a very simple idea that you don't have to understand calculus or anything for, which is that if Ahmed and Starlene want to know if they can predict prices going up or down, you could do something like this. Let's say you have a price. Let's say your prices on consecutive days are 100. You know, the Bitcoin value is 100, whatever, 120, 240. It's going up.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of putting these values, you could call the first value 0, and you could call this up 20%. And you could call this up 100% or whatever.
This is the derivative. This is exactly the derivative.
It's the derivative.
You're doing the derivative.
I'm doing the derivative, right? But
yes,
I think most of the people here, the word derivative probably doesn't mean a whole lot to them. So
yeah,
just to make it simple, you could measure how much did the price go up or down.
Sure.
So I think that Ahmed and Starlene are thinking, I can predict whether the price went up or down, but they're using a statistic that does not measure that.
Exactly.
So they're using the wrong statistic. Now, does that mean the R correlation value is stupid? No, it's brilliant. It's just not answering your question. It's answering a different question. So, or you could say the R correlation is fine, but you're not feeding it the right data. If you want to know, if you're predicting prices going up and down, you don't want to use the raw scores. You don't want to use the Bitcoin price.
No.
You want to, one possibility is you use how much today's price percent up or down from the previous price.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what Ahmed is showing me in this graph. What he's showing me, where is my graph? What he's showing me, let me go back to the simpler one without all those circles. Oh, I don't have it up. Well, anyway, let me bring it up real quickly. Sorry. Let me bring up the simpler one. What he's showing me is that, I'm predicting when it goes up or down, but he's using a statistic. This statistic here is not a statistic of up or down. So this particular software that he's using, is Sirius software, fortunately has a feature that would help him. It has a feature to convert the values to percentage up or down. And you could run that feature of the Sirius software to convert these to percentage up or down from the previous day, and then use that data. So I think you're looking at the wrong data because your question doesn't fit what you're looking at. This is why research meetings are so important, because
I think this is perfect.
Okay. Yeah, and see, what's really helpful is that Vincent says this is perfect. Gives me a lot more confidence that I'm on track. You need to have 2 or 3 or 4 people look at it, because we all make blunders, even though I've been doing this for decades, and so is Vincent and Christopher. Still can just
Christopher, what do you think, Christopher?
Yeah, Christopher, what do you think?
Well, let me just make a few comments about this and that.
Yeah.
If this is all being done in Sirius, then you're going to be constrained to use, whatever tools are in Sirius. There are some good tools, but there may be some other things you want to do that aren't in Sirius. If you have it as, raw data, but paired data that you can input into some other program for analysis, like R or Excel or
Excel,
other
Excel.
programs for statistics. Another way to look at what you have visually is you could create a scattergram. What you have here are just two separate graphs, which provides one view of what's going on. If you had what we call a scattergram or scatter plot, then on a given date, the predicted price of Bitcoin would be paired with the actual price, and you could plot those data points. And since the correlation is minus 0.1, it should be sort of slightly going down as you move through time. The correlation's not real strong, but with any linear correlation, the next thing I would always want to do would be a linear regression t-test to see if the correlation is significantly different from zero or not. And sometimes you can have a very strong correlation, but if you don't have a lot of data, it may not be significantly different from zero, in which case your strong correlation doesn't mean much. If you have a weak correlation, but it's really significantly different from zero, then it says, okay, they're not strongly correlated, but you've got something going on here. Now, the other thing I'd point out is, another way to think of the derivative is as the slope of a tangent line.
Mhm.
In other words, it'll show you are things increasing a given moment or decreasing a given moment. And if they kind of increase and decrease together, then you usually get a pretty strong correlation. But as soon as I saw the arrows kind of showing, when things are going up together or going down together, I was thinking, okay, I think there's a test out there that I haven't used in a long time, which analyzes exactly that sort of situation. I think it's the sign test.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I believe that's a non-parametric test, but that would be another thing to look at, and that would be ignoring how far they go up together, or well, like
that's
in
brilliant.
the graph we have some instances where they're both going up, but one curve goes up a lot more than the other. That would be pretty much ignored in the sign test, I believe.
I think you're right.
Christopher, if you do that, it looks plus, plus, minus, plus. Right. It looks like binomial.
Yeah, it's very similar to what, essentially the same as what Vincent started saying, a binomial test. Let me interrupt here and let me catch everybody up with what we're saying, because this is a pretty high level discussion, and I want to summarize some general points that Vincent and Chris were making, which are very important, which is number one, you're using software that's not very flexible. It doesn't allow you to go in and extend it very easily. You have a feature or you don't have a feature. It's a beautiful software, but that's different from a general statistical package like R or Excel, where you can build all kinds of things. So one of the things that's helpful in your research is if you can import and export your data.
Yeah.
It's critically important, because if Sirius can export the predicted values, the red lines, and the actual values, then you could import that into Excel or R or another program, which is an overall powerful tool, requires some programming or creating scripts or whatever, but it has the flexibility to do more. And the other point that Christopher is really hammering away at, and I think is important, is so many different ways to look at the data and think about it. Like as soon as Christopher said you could a sign test, I went, oh my God, that's brilliant. Because a sign test basically would ignore the fact that this red went up much more than the green and just test, did they go up together or not? And often what we like to do in research is we analyze the data in many ways and we visualize it. There's two things. One is statistical analysis, and the other is visualization. You visualize it in different ways, like a scatter plot would give you another way of looking at it. This line graph is beautiful, it's wonderful, but it's only one lens into it. And if you're doing academic level research, like somebody's writing a PhD dissertation or very high level, where they're going to publish in an academic journal, typically they're using several different analytical tools. They'll be using a specialized program like Sirius, plus they're using R, and they're visualizing it in different ways if they're in this exploratory phase of trying to figure out what's going on.
I have a question for.
So I'm just kind of summarizing in general the concepts behind what Christopher and Vincent are saying. So
I have a question for Starling. Starling, the red model, the forecast model, is not, according to what I understand, is not been designed to fit exactly the data like regression. It's something else, but I don't understand where it come from.
So we've used other software to come up with the Astro Signature to create this. So that's where because we are using different tools. I don't know, I've not heard of a scatter plot. I think I know what it is, but I know there's different ways to look at the same data, but that's what we were trying to do, is put what we understood from the other program into.
Okay, I'll put it another way, simpler way. Was it designed or calculated to fit the green data?
Yes. I mean, I can answer that for you. Yes.
So my suggestion would be to do what Santino showed us, to convert your data in frequency, relative frequency. Yeah, the second column that he showed us.
Yes.
And you just redo what you've done exactly to fit. You're gonna have a better fit instead of trying to arrange things so that the red fit. You do it again. But
I understand what you're saying. Where would the 0 point be though? How would that be? Because I understand you're saying the percentage, but where would we start with the
0 point is whatever your
It's not
first,
important. It's not important.
it's not important.
No.
It's whatever your first data is. The program will take care of that for you.
Okay.
Let me show you in the Sirius software, because it'll be the same concept anywhere, is if you go into the Astro Signature forecast, this is the Sirius software. And I go into this correlation data section, and I pull up any kind of data that I have, and you have your Bitcoin data in here. But if I take this one, whatever it is, FD, whatever that stands for, I don't even know. And over here, I can convert it to percentage change. So the feature's already there. You just click on percent change.
Yeah.
And now it's showing me how much up or down the graph goes each day. And see, it looks incredibly different because given day, the price is generally going to go up less than 1%. It's like from one day to the next.
Excuse me, Santino, I would try to create a model to adjust this.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the data you want, not the raw data.
Maybe even the percentage change of this second percentage, what I call this second derivative, because I never done it, but my standpoint is that F equal ma in physics. A is the second. You do it twice. This is acceleration of the data that would connect to the force, planetary force.
Wow.
It may work.
Wow, that's brilliant. I never would have thought of that. So
yeah, I didn't try it.
In simple terms for everybody to understand, what this would mean is you would save this it says save, so I can just save it.
Oh,
And
cool.
then
You
it
do-
says blah 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 blah.
And you
I'll
do
say
it
yes.
again.
And then there's some option for reducing range of scores. I'll just say no. And it just added this underscore per change to the name of it. It just created the file. Now what Vincent's, here it is. Here's the file. Now it's saved. What Vincent's saying is take this file and run %change on it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wild, creative idea.
I never tried it. It's because I worked a lot on the stock market. It never worked. But
Here's what it looks like. Here's the second derivative. This
oh,
is
you've done it. Wow.
Yeah, I just
cool.
did it. This is
Maybe you can model more easily this with planetary, which symbolize the force in physics.
Yeah, because my experience doing financial research is similar to Vincent. I've had a terrible time with financial research. Just awful.
Me too.
I couldn't get anywhere. And then I
But
did
David,
research on other groups. Let me just finish the sentence. Then I did research on accidents, and boom. I mean, it just stuck out like a sore thumb, as the saying goes.
Yes.
So accidents was remarkably easy. Like, oh my God, could it be that easy? And financial was driving me insane. So, I might not have been looking at it the right way. I might not have been looking at the right variables. Maybe I needed to use second derivative. Maybe who knows what. But for whatever reason, I was very slow going.
David, it might just be that the market is rigged and has been for several decades. The old methods that worked in the 20s and 30s and 40s, it's that simple. All right.
Yeah.
When the market's not rigged, they might work. Right. So I hate to think like that, but
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that even if the market were rigged, there should be a way to see the pattern involved.
I agree.
There's
I
got
agree.
to be a pattern, even if it's rigged.
Yeah.
And it may be that it requires different planets, different formulas, but the pattern's got to be there.
okay.
It might be asteroids. It might be who knows
Right.
what. It could be Vedic astrology. I don't know, but all I know is, I made progress, and Linda helped improve the gold forecast. I mean, it wasn't like we got nowhere, but it was extremely slow. And other research I've done, like the bipolar disorder, just blew my mind. It started working right from the beginning, and
Mhm.
confirmed. So
Santino,
sometimes
David,
things work and don't work. Yes, Richard.
I was saying that Ray Merriman has taken this down to a science. He's done very well. I've taken his course and I've passed it, but you can make these correlations, but there's so many different variables. It's how like there's sun-moon relationships, and then there's each planetary relationship with another planet, what cycles they're on, whether they're in a bull market or a bear market at that particular over a course of particular time. So it's quite doable. I'm not sure how you've been approaching it, but and I forget it because if you don't work with it, you lose it. But
Yeah.
What
It raised-
software did you use, Richard? Do you remember
what software?
you used? Did you use?
Just standard software. You can use like well, of course you can use Cirrus, but you can also use well, he used Excel a lot.
Richard,
Yeah.
Richard, the problem with Merriman and others, what's his name? The guy from Toronto. He was guru in the 80s. I forgot his name. And others also. They have rules, but they don't have a system, a model like what Starling is trying to do. It's not the same. So they're good because first they're familiar with the market. It's like someone who would know how to play poker or blackjack. He goes to the casino. He's a good player. And he used some rules, like mathematical rules, to add his ability. So he may have good results, which are a hybrid of their own abilities and rules, but we're not working there now. We're working on a model that worked like a mechanics by itself.
Yeah, so
Remember,
here,
didn't publish that.
So
Yeah,
it's
so
worth
nobody-
rediscovering.
Nobody's done it. Nobody. What Santino tried and I tried, we failed.
let me show expand on what Vincent's saying. Here's a prediction for how much it's going to rain or snow, how much precipitation there will be in whatever location. This is for Cleveland, Ohio. So, it's predicting that there's going to be increased precipitation on June 22nd and June 23rd.
Wow.
And it gives the correlation value. And also, Christopher was talking about statistical significance. This software does tell you the statistical significance as well as the correlation value. Now, here's the details of what the prediction is based on. And what it's using is it's using the transits in the sky. It's also looking at ingresses, eclipses, lunations. So on the lunation preceding this date, transiting Neptune is quincunx. I think this is the lunation midheaven.
So it's loco.
So for Cleveland, Ohio. So
Wow.
yeah, this is amazing. This is mind blowing.
Yes.
Like I don't even want to think about how many literally hundreds of hours I spent just to program to getting lunations into this. Nobody uses it. Nobody knows about it. But and Richard was talking about the complexity of Ray Merriman's predictions. Complexity is not a problem. We have software that will put huge complexity. You can just go into the software, take everything that Ray says is going on, put it in there, and get the graph, get the correlation.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Ray about this, and I said, look, you're saying you have something that works. Put it in the Sirius software.
Yes.
Do it. We have the software. It doesn't matter how complex it is, whatever. Now, he may have some variables that are not in here. And now I'm working on the Galaxy software that will pick up where this left off so that you can, there's always things that are not here. But the level of detail and the sophistication of what you can do, including lunations and whatever, and ingresses, which is a big part of Monday. So when people say, well, this is complicated, we can do that. The ball is in your court. It's not in the...
Santino, I have three questions, important questions. First, the first question, this beautiful connection. I didn't see the correlation value. It's high. Is it 0.4, 0.5?
Oh yeah, let me see.
Do you remember somewhere?
Let me see. I moved things around. Where did it go?
Anyway, it's significant. You lost it. Maybe you show us later.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. I don't know why it's not showing.
It looks.
Yeah, I've moved things around so much I don't.
So my second question: the design of the red was done to fit the green, but is it predictive if you go further in time? Or is this retro adjusted or this is a prediction?
No, I took this right out of McCormick's book. I bought McCormick's book and I put his formula in. I didn't test anything.
Yeah, but my third question, we don't see it now. Oh yeah, on the left. We see the last column at the left with points. Your software calculate the points, the coefficient, the weights by a optimization to make it work. So this is what your your program does, a calculation of the points. Am I right?
Right. I tried to implement McCormick's formula exactly as he describes it in the book.
You take the rule, the McCormick factors, and you weight them with your software. So it's a fit. So we have to look if it's predictive, because the fit with a lot of rules, I would say nearly every rules if you do optimization with your program to get the points or the weights, it will fit. But will it predict? This is the big question. It's beautiful, but it's normal to have such a nice fit when it's done with good astrological factors with your program. You calculate the weights with
Yeah.
optimization. It's normal to get something beautiful.
Okay, what's happening here? I wasn't looking at this properly. What is happening is the green one is precipitation, rain and snow.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
red one is temperature. I don't have let me just finish. I do not have a file of the actual temperature and precipitation in Cleveland, Ohio. In fact, I can't have it because this is for the next month. But I do not have in the software precipitation temperature values. You could download those from a government website, import them into the program, and then you could see if the model's working. But in the software, when I was working for this company, which I know I did not go and download actual data to compare it to. So you could download it and test and see how well it works.
I thought the green was the model. Excuse me.
I thought it was too.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
Yeah, I was wrong too. I was looking at it quickly, and now I realize there's predictions for two different things.
You're right.
But it makes sense that I haven't downloaded precipitation and temperature data for every town in the world or whatever anyway, but I didn't even download a few of them. So
is this data that you can import into Sirius?
yeah, you can import almost any kind of data into Sirius, any kind of comma delimited file. In the import section, it gives you all kinds of different options that we ran into as we were importing different financial data.
I haven't done that. That's good to know.
Yeah, you can import the data, you can graph it, and you can predict it. So for people like Ray, I've challenged Ray and I said, Ray, let's test it. Put it in the Sirius software. We can put all those variables in there. We can do the correlation value and see if it works. The complexity of the formula is not an issue. All you have to do is define exactly what your rules are. And if those rules depend on political decisions in the world and whatever, well, obviously, we can't do that. This is just a pure astrological prediction.
Well, I talk to Ray frequently, and so I'll just ask him.
Yeah. Yeah. We can model financial forecasting very well in the Sirius software, extremely well.
Yeah.
Good.
I think it was Starlene. Was it you who said that you've never done a scatter plot before? And if that's the case, if you have data in like a file with comma separated values, something you can import, let's say, into a program like Excel.
I do.
Yeah, then a great little thing that people can do these days with all of these different artificial intelligence bots is you can just go there and ask it to tell you, how do I create a scatter plot in Excel?
Good idea.
Give me examples step by step. And if
Didn't
you're
even think
trying
about
to
that.
learn a more advanced statistical program like R, you can ask ChatGPT or Microsoft's Copilot the same thing.
I agree.
You can say, give me the code for doing that.
Yeah, actually, it's the best teacher I had in my life, better than the teacher I had in university.
What I'm waiting for is, things are progressing so rapidly in some areas of technology like artificial intelligence, and as I understand it, also quantum computing, which will be light years faster than the supercomputers we have today. And so it's not inconceivable to me that within just a few years, we may be able to go to one of these quantum computers coupled with artificial intelligence and just say, does astrology work? And it'll come back a couple of seconds later and say, yes. And that settles it.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, the AI tools, I was working with Nelson and he's developing this beautiful iPhone app. and he told me how he used AI to develop some of the code. And I thought, whoa, I haven't done that. And I'm developing this Galaxy program. I ran into a certain thing I was trying to do. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, write the code for in the language that I use, blah, blah, blah. And it wrote it. I couldn't believe it. It's like, oh my, this is crazy. Now, there were two little bugs I found in the code, but I would not have been able to write that code. It would have taken me hours, and it just bam. And to debug it is not a big deal. It was come up with the original code. So, and this is advancing very rapidly. So, yeah, it's amazing the
Yeah,
things that are
it's a
happening.
great way to learn how to do various things in statistics.
Yeah, yeah.
Santino, did you happen to ask Ray about Bitcoin if it was represented by an orb or a pattern? Because he always, he associates gold and silver with certain planetary orbs and their cycles.
No, I mean I've read Ray's books, and no, but I haven't talked to him about his specific formulas. I've just
Because
been
that
encouraging
sets.
him to model it precisely.
Hmm.
I don't know all the details of his formulas, but typically he's using aspects, signs, like in one of his early books, Moon in Virgo was good for something and whatever. We can model all those things, and now we can model lunations and ingresses as well into the formula. So,
Yeah,
but
but I know it's a lot of it was a correlation between the orb and, say, the commodity.
yeah, but it's up to other people to do that. I'm not going to do that. I built the
No.
tools. You're the expert in financial forecasting. You can just go in the software and do it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Because I think, one of the things that Christopher and I are emphasizing is we're in the 21st century. This is like everything's changed. Like in a few years, we're in a different world. Now I can go to AI and ask it to write code and it did it for me. I mean, oh my God, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, we talked earlier about doing a sign test, and I've never done a sign test in Excel. I don't know if it does the sign test. I imagine it does, but since I've never done it in Excel, I've only, done it by hand before. Yeah, I would go to one of the artificial intelligence bots and just say, can I do a sign test in Excel? If so, show me exactly how to do it.
Now, I don't know if the Sirius software, even though I wrote the program, I don't remember, and I don't think it does. I don't think you can export the results. Oh, yeah, that's what I just wrote for some recent research. It doesn't export these results in a nice comma delimited file. And one of the R scripts I created took some results out of Sirius, simplified them so we could use it. But anyway, that's a limitation in this software. It's hard to connect these results to Excel or R or whatever. It can be done, I think, but it might require some work, possibly some programming. Okay. Well, anyway, I wanted to go over this to emphasize that sometimes when you're doing research, you might not be doing the best visualization or using the best statistic or the best data. And one simple conclusion, we have a lot of ideas, and I'm glad this is recorded because there's so many great ideas came up. But one simple thing is that maybe you should be using percent change, or even, as Vincent suggests, a percent change of a percent change instead of the raw data. That alone might be a huge breakthrough. Some breakthroughs I've had are like, one of my jokes is I don't have receding hairline. It's like, oh, you're so stupid. Oh my God. Like, oh my God, how did I miss that? And I keep hitting my head, and that's why I'm losing hair. Um, I mean, just miss these obvious things. Everybody does sometimes. Like use percent change instead of the raw data. And one thing like that sometimes opens the door and things start working. Okay.
Thank you so much. It was really helpful, all of you, and I'll definitely let you know what happens because this is exciting. So I
Yeah.
use ChatGPT for so many things I didn't even think to for this reason, and it sometimes just as explaining how to do something that I don't know. So it makes sense to use it in that way.
Cool.
Right.
Okay, good. And this will be uploaded, the recording this will be uploaded within a couple of days or so. And then Ahmad, he's probably not watching this in the middle of the night where he is. So, where is he here? Anyway, but anyway, you can watch it again. Okay, well that was cool. You can see how research is moving forward in sophisticated ways. I think we're ready to look at Greg's stuff. Are we good? Let me go into the chat and see if there's anything going on in the chat that I've missed. Does Sirius allow you to import CSV files? Yes. For the data, you can import gold prices, silver prices, any stock. Yeah, you can import those files, which are normally on some website as CSV files. That's the standard, typical thing. And yeah, there's an import somewhere in the program. You can import. You just say import. And there's a whole bunch of different options. Yeah. Okay. But again, as Christopher pointed out, it's a program that it's wonderful, but it's not like Excel or R where you can just make up stuff. And especially R, you can do almost anything. Okay. Greg, I think we're ready.
And I think I'm ready.
Okay, good. We can see you. And
yeah.
You want to share your screen?
Talking about hitting your head, I actually had that little slide on the top of the computer that covered the camera.
Oh, okay.
That's why I couldn't get a picture. but rebuilding it did let me get PowerPoint going. I'll go ahead and share the screen.
I'll stop sharing and you can share.
Okay. Yeah, here we go. Huh? Oh, it says the host disabled attendee screen share.
Oh, yeah. I didn't give you the ability to share. And another dumb thing, right? Okay. That would help. Let me go into, Let me go into participants, find you, and give you the share.
Okay.
It's probably a faster way to do this. Greg Howard, there you are. Okay, now you can share.
Okay. Let's try this.
So we're going to change channels here from financial forecasting to Greg's research on evaluating something to do with houses and stuff like that, and getting triggered at different points in time.
Are you able to see my PowerPoint?
No, I'm still seeing your handsome face.
Oh. I hit share screen.
And then you should see where it says, oh, don't share a specific application, share the whole screen. When you click share screen, it'll show you all these different things. In the upper left, it'll say screen, and just select the whole screen.
Okay. It says entire screen.
Yes, do the whole entire screen. That's the simplest thing. Okay, it's coming up. Whoa, what the heck?
You see the whole thing? Okay, good. Let's get.
No, yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so here's PowerPoint.
Okay, perfect. We got it.
Yeah, I tried getting what I could get done today, and then I'm actually in Oregon babysitting my grandkids while my daughter and her husband are in Europe on vacation. So I got called this afternoon saying I had to go pick up my daughter or my granddaughter from school. So that interrupted everything. But I do have 11 screens that I put together. It's basically what I shared with Santino is a protocol with the rules and the procedure for doing the research. So I was just trying to put it into a PowerPoint format to make it easier to share. But anyway, this is the research project is optimal house system for natal astrology. I've actually spent the past 25 years researching methods for doing natal interpretation. And when I first contacted the Institute, I was ready to move forward with that. And then after having discussions, I realized it would be people use different house systems. So just because mine works, maybe say Placidus or Coke, I know a lot of people use Equal House or Whole Sign's very popular. So it would make more sense before I moved forward with actually doing natal interpretation. First, what is the correct house system to use? So the purpose of the study is designed to determine if one specific house system should be favored over others when casting natal horoscopes. And the study will focus on Placidus, Coke, Equal House, and Whole Sign systems. I'm using those 4.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the background slide, just what I just discussed and what I'm investigating. And those 4 systems are commonly used in natal work.
Okay,
But the planets fall into different houses. Go ahead.
okay, let me ask you a question. When you say equal house, do you mean equal houses from the ascendant?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay.
Yeah. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, let's see here. I pulled up. Where's here? This one here. Okay, can you see? I've got Jackie Onassis on Astro Data Bank.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, if you look at the natal chart in the side of the screen, for all these charts, you can pick Placidus, Equal House, Whole Sign. It's right there to pick. So for instance, if we go to Jackie's chart in Placidus, and I was actually with her looking at the assassination of her husband, and the transit and that corresponded with that was Pluto conjunct Mars at the time that he was shot. But if you look here, Pluto in Placidus Mars is in her 10th house. Natal Mars is in her 10th house. Now we go to equal houses. Mars is up against the cusp of her 11th house. Now we go to whole sign houses. Mars is in the middle of her 11th house. So using these type of examples, my project is going to look at comparing the different charts. I'm using these 3 plus Coke houses. And with those, comparing those 4, looking for planets like Mars here that in different systems move around to different houses, and then doing research into the events that trigger those planets and match what actually happened to the symbolism of the different houses to try and determine which houses are correct. And let me get back to my PowerPoint here. Let's do from current slide.
Greg,
Yes.
are you using charts from that have more extreme illustrations, like closer to the Antarctic, as well as charts in the tropical zone, temperate zone?
No, I do different charts in my own, but for this project, I'm not sure how many might be from the southern hemispheres.
Right, or really far on the northern hemisphere.
Yes.
Well, it seems like to have a good good thing. You might want to have a distribution of charts over different parts of the world.
Okay. No, that's definitely a good suggestion. I'm making note of that.
Okay.
Uh, write it down here.
Of course, you have to have people with biographies, but surely there are some that are born in, like Norway or Sweden. You could get something that was
Yes.
further north, and you could get something from South America that's, on down there, kind of a relatively even distribution through the
Yes.
different zones. It seems to me that if you don't have that, you're not going to really be testing the houses accurately.
Okay. All right. I'll look into that.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to move on, and you'll
Sure.
because the presentation includes where I was getting my samples from.
Okay.
So, one thing I wanted to say that the study is designed to eliminate bias as much as possible. A key source of bias is how one interprets natal charts. I mean, there's humanistic astrologers, psychological, evolutionary, vibrational. I'm definitely biased by my own way that I do charts. So to avoid such bias, natal interpretations will be excluded. The study will rely on common basic practices from predictive astrology. All we're really trying to do is just confirm which houses seem to match the circumstances. So houses are key elements of predictive astrology. The basic approach is transiting planets trigger events related to the house being transited. These events impact the natal planets being aspected and the impacts felt in the area of life symbolized by the planet's house. So each planet that we're going to be looking at is going to be two houses. There's going to be the house where the transiting planet is passing through, and then there's going to be the planet's natal house. So that'll give us two houses to look at for each planet under consideration. And the team I'm wanting to put together, I will be the researcher. I design the study, create the test protocol. I oversee the activities, compile the results, and then write a summary report to submit to the Institute for review. What I'm hoping to get from this group, and I've also reached out to the research director at ISAR, I need research assistants who can review biographical sources for assigned test cases and identify significant events affecting the planets under review. So let's say I would give you someone like Jackie Kennedy, and you would see, well, Mars is definitely a planet that appears in different houses. So we're going to take a look at Mars and then look at different life events where Mars was the planet that was being triggered. Now, after doing that, then a narrative is created for each event, identifying the planets involved, the nature of the event, and the impact on the subject's life. And once that's done, we'll then have test participants. And these people don't have to know anything about astrology. They can be anybody. The research assistants need to be able to understand astrology to where they can, look at predictive charts and know what they're looking at and be able to find the right planets to look to. But these test participants, they'll be given the narrative for each event, also a list of the houses, and then all they have to do is just select what they think which house corresponds to the event and which house corresponds to the area of life that the event impacted. And it's pretty much that simple. I believe it. I'm trying to keep it simple. Then a reviewer with expertise in research methods will ensure that the research and test activities comply with accepted research guidelines and practices. So the team will be me, some research assistants, some people that we can recruit to look at the narrative and pick the houses they think fit. And then Santino is going to make sure that I follow proper protocol in doing it.
Okay, thank you, Greg. It's nice that you made this whole PowerPoint. I have some thoughts, some questions and thoughts. Does anybody else have any, want to bring up some thoughts, questions about the research design? So,
Yeah, just
I do.
yeah.
a small
Yeah.
point. Okay, I'll talk after. Okay, go.
Okay, Christopher, you can go first.
Okay, so you're looking at only 4 house systems, right?
Yes.
But in Sirius, I think Sirius offers you at least 20 different house systems to choose from. So, I've seen some studies that have been done on house systems where just a few were taken, and oftentimes those studies may show that Coke houses work a little better than the others, or sometimes they've shown that house systems which like equal house systems where you're not going to get intercepted signs work a little better, but that doesn't completely answer the question for me as to which house system is best, because there are all these other house systems out there too, and it may be, if you're taking 4 house systems out of 20, well, the best one may be one of those 16 that you're not looking at. So I really want to see a study done which uses all the different house systems for comparison, as many as possible.
Okay. A
Vincent.
few years ago, Kyösti Tarvainen, with different method, has done a bit what you say, like tested at least 10 systems, and he found that the two you said, the equal from the ascendant and Koch were more performant. Probably, Greg, that research by Kyösti, but what you do is different. I like it very much. I think it's very promising. I would have a little suggestion. You work with AA data because it's very sensitive to the birth time. That's obvious. So yes. I would suggest also to, based on research, and I'm not alone who've done that type of research, you should avoid every time of the form XX.00 right to the hour, because they're absolutely certain that they're heavily rounded. So it's very easy to see it. If you take a Gauquelin data and you look at the distribution that should be uniform, you find about between 70 and 80% of the Gauquelin data close to the 00. So
yes.
That if you have to distribute, you're going to be minus 20 minutes plus 20 minutes. So it just scrap your work. So I would suggest that you avoid those times. It restricts your possibilities, but it's really worthwhile. I finish with this. In my first article I published a few years ago, my matching test, if I had 73, my first study was 73 subjects, and if I just divide the sample in 2 parts, 100 rounded, and the other one, the p-value is much better with non-rounded. It's written, I published that in Correlation. So I suggest so your research is very important. So maybe you should avoid that pitfall, please.
Okay, yeah, I made a note of it. avoid birth times that are, I'm going to say, on the hour or half hour.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Half
Yeah,
hour also.
exactly. That's what Linda Berry and I in our research have come to the same conclusion as Vincent and the same results.
Oh,
We're generally, in most of our research, removing birth data on the hour or the half hour, even though they're AA data, because what happens is you go through all this work with all this research, and then you end up with the times that are on the hour and half hour not fitting your model very well, but your design included it. And I always wished I didn't include it. So now we don't. And Vincent's run into the same conclusion. So
and Kiosty also.
yeah.
And you've done it too?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
found
yeah.
that the people born on the hour and a half hour, there are many more exceptions to my model than the others. And it's,
Exactly.
that's probably because the times are not
Yeah.
accurate. So
Sure.
yeah. So even though there's supposedly AA, yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. You'll probably get better results. And let me go back to the point about using more house systems. If you use more houses, suppose you use 20 house systems instead of four, I'm not sure what'll happen, but I believe that in most cases, all the house systems are going to typically be within about, maybe three different houses. Because if something's on the east side and above the horizon, it's usually going to be in the 10th, 11th, or 12th house. So by using, say, a lot of house systems, it may not add a huge amount more work for the astrologers who are evaluating this, because you have to be practical. In a perfect world, you have 1,000 assistants and you have millions of dollars. In the real world, you don't want to do something that's, idealistically correct, but now is not reasonable to do. You have to work within the constraints of your resources. So I'm suspecting that it won't overload your work, and then it would be a good idea because you'd have a lot more information. Does that
Yes,
make sense to everybody else?
I agree totally.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think Christopher's idea of including more house systems is a good one because I think it'll give us more exciting information and probably not be that much more work.
Exactly. It won't
Yeah.
add a burden.
And one think it'll be a burden. Yeah.
No.
We all tend to have our favorite house systems. And we all know that choosing a house system in astrology is almost like choosing a religion.
It's-
You know, people
Oh,
will fight.
absolutely. You want to get into a fight? I'll tell you what.
Yeah, but it's like one a friend of mine always uses porphyry houses,
Yeah.
and in some ways I have a preference for Reggio Montanus, and those are often not included in the studies that I've seen.
Deborah Holding uses different house systems depending on what kind of chart she's doing.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of people do that. Yeah.
And sometimes I may look at use two different house systems simultaneously.
Hmm.
But
Uh,
Greg is doing all for natal, not for event.
Yeah, natal only.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
perfect, Greg. That's good.
right. So at the
That's
very
clear.
least, I think you want to include house systems that are, widely used by astrologers.
That's why I picked the four.
Yeah, but
What I come across is the most of people using strictly for natal.
yeah,
But it would not be difficult. What I can do, I can use these basic ones to screen. And then once we've done our screening and selected these charts, have at least some have the planet in two houses. I have seen a couple where a planet will appear in three different houses using different systems.
yeah,
So once we have those picked, it's not a big deal to go and then
No.
pull the other ones in and just note what houses they fall in there.
yeah,
That won't be difficult, but it would be a massive thing to try and use all of them for the initial screening. But once all the screening is going to do, we'll just select, these are some charts we're going to look at that we know will meet the criteria. Then we can pull the other houses in. That wouldn't be a burden to do that.
It,
yeah.
Go on.
That would be sort of like, March Madness in a way, I guess, where, you can, for instance, like take just two house systems. Which one works better? Okay, this one works better. It moves to the next round. Compare that with the house system.
Yeah.
Good game
See
show.
who the winner
Well,
ultimately
think-
is.
Greg, have you ever looked at a book by John North? It was a very technical book on the construction of house systems.
No.
The title, okay, you need to get a copy of that. Philip Graves is coming out with another book that just will be, he's such a fine astrologer and critical thinker looking at all the house systems. I think it becomes almost defining the terms, as my friend Will Morris is often want to say. What do we mean when we say house system, right? Now, I sometimes will use two house systems on a natal chart where I'll compare Placidus with whole sign houses,
Yes.
but one is much more astronomically based than the other, right? So, I mean, this isn't splitting hairs. These become the problems of when we're trying to research house systems. Is what are our parameters? What do we count as a house system and what do we not? Someone else might not consider a symbolic house system like fortune houses, right? Or
Yeah.
the Elizabethans and the Jodish astrologers used sun houses and moon houses as well as ascendant houses, right? There's, so do you draw the line and say we're not dividing houses by
Well,
anything?
I have an idea. I have an idea about that, which is if you were to use sun houses or moon houses or fortune houses, you're going to end up with, and say, yeah, you look at 20 charts, you're going to end up with many, many more houses for the astrologers to evaluate.
Yep.
So if you keep it to houses that are somehow related to the ascendant or midheaven, you're going to limit the amount of work.
Yeah.
As soon as you do a sun house, you're going to give. So one of the things in research that's extremely important, again, and I want to emphasize this because many, even academic papers die because they give themselves too much work.
Yeah.
So you could just restrict it on house systems that are related to the ascendant or midheaven or something.
Yeah, but it's not much more work to do.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you
100,
here's what I'm
it's
saying.
the same job.
No,
Oh.
let's say you're going to look at whoever, John F. Kennedy, whoever it is, and now you're going to ask the astrologer, does it make more sense that his Mars is in the first, second, third, fourth, sixth, eighth, 10th, or 11th house?
Exactly.
Start using sun, and you're going to end up, if you only use houses related to the traditional cusps, it's going to probably reduce the number of choices, therefore make the process much faster and easier.
Mm-hmm.
Or should we also divide house systems into categories, time-based house systems versus space-based house systems, right? Because they're inherently different.
I think the thing is, if I understand this research correctly, you do not want the astrologers thinking about theory because that's going to bias their results.
Right.
You
Exactly.
want them to know what house system it is because they're going to say, I use Placidus houses, and they're going to check Placidus for everything. What you want to do is show the houses, and they have no idea which house is associated with the house system, because obviously they're going to pick the one that they prefer if they know what house system it is.
Like the example I was talking about with Jackie Kennedy. Pluto, her husband was shot when Pluto was conjunct her Mars. That's all you know. Now, based on the narrative in that, what type of a house, now there's also in her seventh house at the time, solar arc Jupiter is trine her Mars, and like Pluto's like the timer on it. The two work together. So when you have a transiting planet in her seventh house for her husband, or I mean, you just have it there, and then you have her husband. The impact would be a 10th house impact a seventh house event with a 10th house impact with Placidus. But then when you look at the other house systems, it'll be maybe a different type of event with, like I was showing, an 11th house impact. But the whole focus for the people picking the houses, they're not going to be given choices. They're going to be saying, this is what happened. Here's the list of the 12 houses. Which do you think fits what happened?
Oh, I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't understand the
Yeah.
design. So
I
they
didn't
are going to
either.
use all 12 houses. That means
Yes.
you can include, so I'm wrong. You can include sun houses more.
Yeah.
You can include,
Yeah. So,
but they're just
it's
going
going
to
to be
pick
which
which
house
house.
seems to fit
Yeah.
best for the event, and then which house seems to describe the effects of the event. It's going to be those. They're going to be make those two decisions without any knowledge, of what system's being used, and without any interpretation of saying, well, this is what Mars means in her chart. It's just going to be, here's what happened, and based on the event and the outcome, match it to two houses from this list.
Mhm.
So I have a
That's all it's
question.
going to be. So then you can take that and apply it to any house system you want.
So
What
the,
I'm really going to do is make an Excel spreadsheet where I'm going to have a tally on what houses are picked, and then be able to compare that against the different systems to show which ones align and which
Yeah.
don't.
Our time is running out, and I want to just make sure we have a couple points. You're not going to give them the name of the person. You're just going to say
No.
his husband was assassinated.
Mhm.
What house do you think?
Well, no,
or-
I think they would get the name of the person. They could have the name of the person. It's just
They will
they're not.
cheat. They will check and cheat.
yeah, they're going to
Okay.
cheat.
You don't want them to know. That's good when you say that. So keep that, please. I made a big mistake. At the beginning, I thought, okay, natural houses, but I thought it was about personality. No, this is event. Fact, event connected with houses. So I was wrong when I thought it was about personality. So I think event, it's easier.
Yeah.
Clearer.
I wanted to take the personality and the natal part out of it.
Yeah.
Just focus on the predictive
So
Yeah.
side, because then it's very simple. What happened and what was the effect?
So your design, let's just talk about the facts of your design. You're going to give to astrologers a statement like a married lady's husband was assassinated when Pluto was, you're going to tell them that Pluto was conjunct Mars, and they're going to say, what house do you think fits this situation for the placement of Mars? And if it's not a conjunction, you'll also ask what house the transiting planet was in. Is that
Yes.
like, I'm trying to see exactly what your procedure is. That's basically the procedure.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, though I would use the word murdered instead of assassinated.
Yes.
Because
Right.
when you say assassinated, that often implies a political figure.
Mhm.
Very good.
I agree with
Yeah.
that.
You assassinate a person of prominence.
Right.
Yeah. I just want to toss in here, the design of this is very intriguing to me, and I want to see how it comes out. But in other designs, you might be, doing some statistical tests, winding up with a p-value, a probability value, and whenever that can be done, that's always very interesting, because then it becomes very easy in a way to see, which house system gives you back the most significant probability value.
Well, I'll be able to do that
Uh-huh.
with my data collected, the tally sheet.
Okay.
I'll have numerical data that I can analyze that way.
Okay, that's great then.
Yes.
That kind of simplifies it a bit to me.
Yeah.
Takes out a lot of the subjectivity.
And what I will do as I have a team and we start to move forward, before the initial work's going to be some people helping me to come up with the charts to use, the narrative, which events we're going to look at, And then before I would pass them out to volunteers who wanted to just pick which houses correspond, we could run it through one of these meetings to this group and get feedback so that after it's done, we don't have someone saying, "Oh, if only you'd have done this."
Yeah.
I don't want to have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to try and get as much information as we can from this first round.
Mhm.
And I didn't get to finish that other slides I had just showed where my sampling was coming from.
Mhm.
I would actually Time Magazine. Have a list of 100 men of the year and 100 women of the year from the past 100 years. And there are people from all over the world who have good biographies and very significant events in their lives. So that's what I was going to pick from. I was initially going to start with the women, but at the same time, if I'm going to now, with the advice I have, eliminate anyone born at 8 o'clock or 8:30,
Yes.
try and get people from different extreme latitudes. For instance, one of the men of the year is Nelson Mandela, who's down in South Africa. I mean, he would definitely be a good contrast to someone, born in Canada or United States. So I do have a good pool that I'm going to draw from for people who have well documented, biographical information. And I'll be using the AstroDNA site to verify they have AA Rodden ratings. And also the site is very good about listing dates of the significant events in their lives.
Can I just say something, Greg? I would don't think I'm picky. I love what you do, really. I personally think that I would avoid South Hemisphere people because there's a big controversy in the South Hemisphere. Those who think that the zodiac is universal, nothing different in the South Hemisphere, but there's a minority of very serious astrologers who think that it's season connected. So I would avoid that. I play with.
But that's another reason I'm not using the signs.
Oh, yeah, but
I'm taking the signs out of it because I don't follow that. I don't think it's season.
Oh yeah, you're right. It won't change anything. The house. Excuse me. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't use rulership. Just the presence of planet in the house. It doesn't change anything. No,
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The sign can be in the 8th house any place on the planet.
Okay. Excuse me.
Well, even though what Vincent was saying doesn't apply to what you're doing, actually, for the same considerations, I would, if it did apply, then for the same considerations Vincent raised, I would say do include South Hemisphere, because then we could maybe divide it up into two groups, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, and see if there is a difference.
But there won't be, according to what Greg said, because there's no.
Oh, no, in his case.
In this case. I understand.
If it was a different study where
Okay.
made a difference, then we could test to see.
You're right.
Astrologically between Northern Hemisphere versus
that would be a good opportunity to do it. You're right.
Yeah.
In that case, no, but okay.
Yeah, the exact rules for how you select the charts has to be decided before you look at anything.
Oh
So
yeah.
these are important considerations. Like your rule might be, I'm going to use all men and all women who have AA data according to Astro Databank and are not born on the hour or the half hour. It might be 10 people, it might be 30 people. But you set your rules, or you could say, and not born in the Southern Hemisphere, or not this or not that, or whatever. But you have to specify the rules, because anything that is not completely objective, like a machine could do, critics will say your research is worthless.
Yeah.
They'll just say it's worthless because he subconsciously selected this. And you know what? A lot of times they're correct, because the power of your subconscious mind is so strong that it can draw to you miraculous coincidences. And so you really want to just have some clear set of rules. And so this discussion is important because one, you have to define it and then collect the data.
Wow. We're on the same page.
Okay,
Santino.
good.
I totally agree with you.
We both been
Exactly
in the,
what, yeah, it happened to me.
it happened to me too. Once you're in the trenches for as many decades as Vincent and I do, you're getting stories from the worn out researchers and the problems we've run into. And that's one of them. Everybody's psychic ability is amazing, is what I discovered.
So to just add a point to what you said, so it means that you don't want to be accused of excluding subject or
Right.
including. So it's very strict.
Right.
One thing, I think this is a fascinating study, and I'm really going to be interested to see what the results on it are.
Mm-hmm.
I do see, it does seem to me, though, maybe some of you would disagree with this, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, that it is limited to how houses operate in events in transits. It doesn't really tell us what houses are best for natal charts.
Yes, different. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yes. But some astrologers make a difference.
I have a question related to this. Is that you're going to ask some number of astrologers to pick what house they think is associated with something. What about variability in interpretations? Like some astrologers may say the eighth house is death. Some may say it's partners' resources. So, like modern astrologers associate eighth house with sexuality, but medieval astrologers really dislike that idea completely. Some people say second house is money, some say it's values. I mean, there's all these different ideas. Is that variability okay? And if so, it's going to depend on what kind of astrologers you pick. If they're
I'm eliminating it by not picking astrologers.
how is it going to happen?
I want astrologers to help me with the research and set up the test. Then I'm going to have people who just read the narrative and pick from a list of 12 houses what seems to fit.
And you're going to define a short statement of what each house means.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
I like that because
I want to take as much bias out of it as I can. And because I know that a million astrologers have a million different views, I want to keep that out of the final
reducing
result.
variability is very important. And one thing is, you're the researcher. And if you think eighth house means X, Y, Z, you're free to make that decision. That's not considered to be a bias. That's considered to be what you're testing. So you can define those 12 houses as you understand it and just ask these non-astrologers which one relates. I think that's fine.
What if you went to something like ChatGPT?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm channeling you, Vincent. Yeah, ask ChatGPT to give a short description of each house. Maybe specify, don't make your description any longer than this many words. But that could remove maybe some of your own personal bias about what houses mean.
But is it a problem that he uses his personal bias?
Not really, because it plays against the research. It doesn't create that's good because it's more conservative. If his choices are not sound, it will play against. Oh no! I'm wrong. He doesn't want to prove something. He wants to pick something. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
In my definition of the houses is
Then
pretty
I'm
much
wrong.
paraphrasing Rob Hand
I'd like to add something.
Horoscope Symbols, his book.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to what Christopher said. Once he's done that, ChatGPT, you can now ask him to play the part of people also. I've done it in my last research. I had 72 people, and I asked ChatGPT to play the role of a person, so 30 times. So it was very consistent, and what surprised me is that not only ChatGPT was consistent because he's got his own set of rules, but the 70 astrologers who were picked randomly, different levels. I remember Philip Graves wrote to me, "Oh, wow, Vincent." And I answered, "It plays against me." They were consistent. And the question was not easy. I asked the astrologer to classify signs according to their interest, possible interest into astrology, just to fit with Gunther Sachs study. And they were really consistent. I mean,
But
the 72 people were, even if they were very variable, they were very close
okay,
in the answers.
let me say something. We're running out of time. I just want to make this point that
Okay.
the researcher has a question, and as advisors to researcher, we don't want to tell the researcher what his question is. If his question is, does my understanding of the houses, is my understanding correct? That's his question. His question is not, is the standard understanding of astrology that's agreed upon correct? Maybe he doesn't care about that. Maybe he's looked at charts for 30 years. So both studies are equally valid, in my opinion. He can test his ideas or he can test the consensus ideas. But I don't think one is better than another. I think that a researcher must do what their passion is. They have to follow their passion and their vision, because otherwise you're just turned into a robot and you're just executing things. Like Greg has some kind of passion about this because he's looked at charts for decades. He thinks it really works. He wants to test it more objectively. If he wants to test his interpretation, he should. If he wants to do something that's more agreed upon to test the consensus, then he can use what you've done. I think both are good.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's up to you, Greg, what your question is and how you want to test it. That's the great thing about being a researcher. You get to decide what your question is.
Yeah.
I agree. But if you pick a consensual interpretation of houses, he's going to have more audience listening to him.
But maybe that's not his goal. Maybe his goal is not to have
Maybe
audience. Maybe his goal is to find out how astrology works, and he, from his own personal
I'm
work.
wanting to know which house system I can trust, so then I can move on to my real research project, which is validating the methods I've developed for natal interpretation.
And in trusting a house, do you want to trust your understanding of houses or the consensus understanding of houses? That's up to you.
Linwood Riddick of New York could have spent his
Well, the primary difference, even my personal views, I'm a little different than the mainstream in that I really stick with the elements and the modes. For example, the 8th house, it's water. It's fixed water. Okay. Borrowed money is not water. That's earth. But the emotional impact of being in debt to somebody, that's water. That's the way I view from it. So I'm going to still cover the main things people look at, but really flavor it based upon the underlying elements that it's in.
Yeah, see, I have the advantage that I've spent time, Greg visited me and Anna here in Cincinnati. We went through this stuff. And so spending time with him, I could see, oh my God, this guy's a real, he's a real astrologer. He's spent time, he's looked at this stuff, he's worked through stuff, he's got his idea and he wants to see if it works. So that's why I feel like he should find out. He thinks that 8th house is fixed water. That's what he should test and phrase it exactly, just because I think that's his passion. The passion of other researchers is to see if the consensus is correct. But the researcher has, in this case, his question. And I don't want to change his question because he's the researcher and this is his passion.
But I did get some really good, advice, some extra guardrails that I can put in place to make sure I don't run into pushback down the road. I really appreciate everybody's comments. I thought this was very productive discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we can pick up with any additional things next month, that come up with this research. It's a very exciting research. This was, this was great. Did you guys enjoy it? I mean, 3 or 4 of us are the blabbermouths, And I
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
everybody to participate. I mean, we're acting like the great, kings in this case. Like we're the mathematicians. But, oftentimes people who are not so experienced come up with better ideas. So, you don't have to be overly quiet or humble. You can just go in there. I often find the new kid on the block comes up with something oh, gee, really? 'Cause
Well, David,
I'm always amazed by all the creativity that people like Greg exhibit, when they come to these meetings.
yeah,
They do things I've never thought of.
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, this is,
I was going to say, David, we had a guy, Ben Common, speak for the Astrological Society of Kentucky, and he had some very far out ideas that went back to when he was a teenager reading his first astrology books, and he misunderstood Mark Edmund Jones. So he took his misunderstanding of Mark Edmund Jones and came up with some really interesting stuff that does work. So it's on so many levels. Listen, let me ask you quickly, where's the recording for this? Where is it archived?
It'll be on YouTube. Cosmobiology Institute has a YouTube channel. It'll take
Wow.
2 days, and just go to YouTube, type Cosmobiology Institute. You'll see,
Excellent.
and there's 2 sections. One of them is research meetings. It'll be the first one there, but it takes about 2 days.
Right. No,
so-
I need to go back and listen to the beginning part when you and Vincent were talking, throwing the terms around, So,
Vincent was going into derivatives and all that cool stuff.
derivatives is a hard one for me. Yeah.
His work is so derivative.
Wow.
Okay, and again, I want to encourage everybody to participate and feel included. And I think you all have my email address, santino@astrologydc.com, and just be really blunt. Just say, I didn't understand what you were doing, or I loved it, or whatever, because we're here for you. In this case, a lot of emphasis on Greg and Ahmed and Starlene is being, but yeah, this is a nonprofit just to move research forward. And I like to make sure that we are serving all of you, whatever your interest is, because that's what these meetings are for. So if you're quiet, I hope it was just because you were taking it all in. Okay, any last things?
Thank you, Greg, for your input. This is very exciting.
Very exciting.
Well, you're
Yes.
welcome.
Yes.
I've enjoyed this very much. I've learned a lot too.
Greg, do you have
A
a
lot of things I
website?
didn't consider.
Do you have a website with any articles you've written up on it?
No, I got rid of that 20 years ago when I changed my approach.
We
Believe it
don't
or not,
blame you.
25 years ago, I was going around to NCGR chapters doing lectures on how to interpret natal charts using E equals MC squared.
Oh, interesting.
And everything I'm doing now started from that point and went forward.
Yeah.
But I learned not to mention EMC square. People think it takes rocket science to do a chart. I learned that mistake real quick.
Not even derivatives.
Right.
Yeah, start talking about derivatives. You'll really have people running out of the room, right? So,
Yeah. Now, if you want to look backwards on a Bitcoin chart, you have to use integration.
What was that?
maybe, we don't know. We don't know.
If you're using derivatives to predict going forward,
Yeah,
if you wanted to look back
Integration going
historically,
back.
you need
the answer
integration.
is simple. If she developed a model with the second derivative, but now you want to use it, you have to integrate to get the values,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the real
Okay.
values.
Now, is the commodity of Bitcoin, is that a trans-Plutonian orb?
A lot of questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, that's
Okay. Well, Greg, you can see we're all enthusiastic about what we're doing. We love to see people come in and just start doing research. Just fabulous. Okay. Anything else? Are we good? Call it a night?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And again, keep us posted on what you want, because this is all for all of you. Okay. Have a good night. God bless.
Thank you,
Namaste.
Dan.
you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.